the power of grace. Grace is greater than sin. Now, some people don't understand the message we preach, and they will accuse this church of all kinds of things. They say, "Oh, that bunch down there preach grace, and they don't know what people are living in sin." Let me just tell you this: people are living in sin whether you preach grace or not. But grace kills sin in the church. Law strengthens sin. Law is the power of sin. If you preach grace, there's less sin in the church, because grace is the antidote to sin. But you preach law, my goodness, there are sins going on in that church you don't even know of. But everyone look holy outside. So let me just tell you this: I am for holiness. And all the people said, amen. Are you all learning, folks? You want some more? Let's go right now to Acts chapter 13. Acts chapter 13. In Acts 13, we find the Apostle Paul preaching the gospel of grace. In Acts 13, verse 14. But when they departed from Perga, Paul and his party came to Antioch. Where was the place again? Antioch. That's the place where Christians were first called Christians. If people ask you when was Christians first called Christians, it was at Antioch. Now, over there at that time, Paul went to the synagogue, the Jewish synagogue, on the Sabbath day and sat down. Don't forget, none of them were Christians yet in the synagogue. So Paul went there with his party, and Paul sat down there in the synagogue. After the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent to them and saying, "Men and brethren, if you have any word of exhortation for the people, say on." Now, that was a mistake. You don't tell the Apostle Paul, "You got anything to tell the people? Say on." Paul stood up. And motioning with his hand said, "Men of Israel, and you who fear God, listen." And he began to preach a long sermon about the history of Israel. How they began, how God delivered them from Egypt through Moses, brought them through the wilderness, and on and on. But notice, finally he came to this. He talked about the Lord Jesus. And verse 38, therefore, Paul said, towards the end of his sermon, Paul said, "Therefore let it be known to you, brethren, that through this man, the man Jesus Christ, is preached to you the forgiveness of sins." And all the people said, when you preach Jesus Christ, you don't preach, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. You preach the forgiveness of sins to a world that is lost. You preach that through this man, there is forgiveness of sins for you. He died for your sins. Look at the next verse. The next verse is so beautiful. You must memorize the next verse, because people will challenge you about the law of Moses and grace and things like that. And the next verse, Paul said this: "And by him, by Christ, everyone who believes is justified from all things, from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses." Oh, you didn't hear me. You didn't hear me, man. Look at that. Look at verse 39 again. "By him, everyone who believes is justified from all things, from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses." Oh, you didn't hear me. You didn't hear me. If you insist on the law of Moses, you can never be justified. But by him, by the Lord Jesus Christ, everyone who believes is justified from how many things? From which you could not be justified by the law of Moses. Let's lift our hands and just worship the Lord.
I'm fast forwarding through here because I want you to see what he says at the end, if I can get it. Thought it was pretty impressive. Acts 13:39. All right, I think this might be it.
God loves to hear his son being mentioned. Are you listening? Are you listening, folks? God loves to talk about his son. And God loves to hear us talk about his son. And God says, "I don't care how guilty you are. When you bring the lamb, make sure the lamb of your sacrifice is without blemish." because it will remind me of my son who died for you. I don't care how sinful you are, how imperfect you are. As long as your lamb is perfect without blemish, if you kill the lamb on behalf of you, you are justified in the perfection of the lamb. Are you listening, folks? The lamb's perfection becomes yours. Some people don't realize on the night of the Passover, there was death in every house. Every house, Jews included. The night of the Passover, the story of Moses, there was death in every house. Every house, both Jews and Egyptians had death. The only difference was this. In the house of the Jew, in the house of the Egyptian, it was the death of the firstborn. But in the house of the Jew, is the death of the lamb. And because the lamb died, no family member need to die. Are you listening? The lamb died. The Aleph Taf died for us. Hallelujah. You know, my heart is beating really fast because I know I'm handling very holy things. God is confirming His word. My goodness. I have never had in my entire life musical instruments that play by itself. There are angels around, folks. Amen. Praise the Lord. And notice, after Paul said that, by him everyone who believes is justified from all things from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses. The next verse says, beware therefore, Paul warned the Jews, and all those who reject grace. Beware therefore, lest what has been spoken in the prophets come upon you. Behold, you despisers what? Despisers of grace. They hold on to the law. They despise grace. They say people preach grace. You know, they have no standard of living. They have no morals, no moralities. Paul never stopped and justified himself. He never, you know, the Jews would say things like, well, you are saying that it's okay to lie. It's okay to do this. Did Paul mean that? No, Paul just saying, through Christ, we are justified. Now that you are justified, do you want to sin? Of course not. But if you do fall into sin, thank God you're justified. Thank God you will not be cursed because He took your curse. That's what it means, Christ redeemed us from the curse. If I am cursed and He is cursed, it's a waste. He was cursed needlessly. The full gospel has not yet been preached. And Paul says, don't despise grace. Behold, lest this saying come to pass in your life. Behold, you despisers, marvel and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which you will by no means believe, though one were to declare it to you. God says grace is so powerful that some people will not be able to take it, even though someone declared it to you. Look at the result. So when the Jews, at the end of the sermon, so when the Jews went out of the synagogue, the Gentiles begged that this word might be preached to them the next Sabbath. The Jews despised it. Well, we keep Moses' law. We don't know about this teaching of grace. It sounds like Paul is telling us to break Moses' law. Paul wasn't saying that. I'm not saying that. Paul has been accused of that. I've been accused of that. But you know what? The Jews were too proud. They hold on to the law. When even the law pointed to Jesus Christ. Because He expounded all things in the law. Even this Hebrew letter of the law, the one I gave you just now, Genesis, Numbers, all from the law. It points to Jesus Christ. So, but the Gentiles, the non-Jews, begged that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now, when the congregation had broken up, many of the Jews and devout proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to what? Continue in what? Come on, continue in what? In the grace of God. In other words, keep on, keeping on in the grace of God. On the next Sabbath, next week, almost the whole city came together to hear the word of God. When grace is preached, man, people will clamor at the doors, your house, your office. Pick up the phone and call you. Your phone will jam when they hear the real grace of God. Tell me more. Tell me more. Was it love at first sight? No, He loved you long before you were born.
Anyway, that's just the beginning of grace. And for me, it took me 3 to 5 times to listen to grace preached by this guy right here, Joseph Prince, before I really let it set in, before it took hold, because I kind of poo-pooed it. And I said, no way could it be that great. No way could it be just that simple, that no matter what, God is not heavy-handed with us. God does not hate us enough to be so law-minded. How could it be so easy? How could it be so carefree? But it is. He loves you, and He's not judged you. You heard Him say in the very beginning, there is no judgment. He accepts you as you are. Not to worry. It really is true. Just believe and receive the kindnesses of God, the favor and the grace of Jesus Christ.